One of the 5 cases in this video was quietly closed, even though investigators admitted they did not understand what happened. Another involved a body that should have had an identity, but never did, and one of them left behind evidence that still does not make sense today. All 5 cases were officially documented, none were ever fully explained. These are real files, and once you hear the final one, the others will feel very different. The detail that connects every case is simple and unsettling. Each investigation produced evidence that should have answered everything. Instead, that evidence made the case harder to explain. File 5 begins with a woman who seemed determined not to be identified. In November of 1970, hikers in a remote valley in Norway found the burned body of a woman lying among rocks. The location was isolated, cold, and difficult to reach. There were no signs of a struggle, no witnesses, and no clear cause of death at the scene. Nearby, investigators found pill bottles and personal belongings. But something was immediately wrong. Every piece of clothing had its labels carefully removed. Whoever she was, her identity had been deliberately erased. The autopsy revealed carbon monoxide poisoning and sleeping pills in her system, but the evidence did not clearly support suicide. Her fingerprints matched no records. Witnesses later described seeing a woman matching her appearance traveling across Europe under multiple names. Hotel records confirmed she used false identities and paid in cash. Despite years of investigation, authorities could not answer the most basic question: who was she, and why did she not want to be found? The file was closed without an identity. But this would not be the last time investigators encountered a person who seemed to arrive without a past. File 4 takes us back more than 20 years earlier, to a beach where nothing appeared suspicious at first. On a quiet morning in December of 1948, a man was found dead on Somerton Beach in Australia. He was neatly dressed, showed no visible injuries, and appeared peaceful. There was no sign of violence, no wallet, no identification. His pockets were searched repeatedly. Everything seemed ordinary until investigators discovered a tiny, hidden pocket sewn into his trousers. Inside it was a scrap of paper with 2 words printed on it: Tamamshud. The phrase meant ended. It came from a rare book of poetry. Weeks later, police found a copy of that exact book in a nearby car. Inside were a strange handwritten code and a phone number connected to a nurse who denied knowing the man, yet reacted visibly shaken when shown his photograph. The autopsy could not determine how he died. Poisoning was suspected, but never proven. Intelligence agencies showed quiet interest, and once again, a man with no identity entered the records and never left them. The file remained open, but unanswered. File 3 is different, because there was no body at all. In June of 1992, 3 women disappeared from a quiet neighborhood in Springfield, Missouri. A mother, her daughter, and the daughter's friend returned home late at night after graduation events. By morning, they were gone. Their purses were neatly arranged. Their cars were still outside. The house showed no signs of forced entry. Nothing valuable was missing. The scene suggested they left voluntarily, but no one ever saw them leave. Phone records showed an incoming call had been answered in the early hours of the morning. No recording exists of what was said. Over the years, suspects were questioned, leads were followed, and searches were conducted. No arrests were made, no remains were found. Decades later, investigators still cannot explain how 3 people vanished without disturbing a single object. File 3 contains evidence, but no conclusion. File 2 involves evidence so strange that even official explanations contradict the physical facts. In February of 1959, 9 experienced hikers were found dead in the Ural Mountains. Their tent had been cut open from the inside. Footprints showed they fled barefoot into freezing temperatures. Some bodies had massive internal injuries without external trauma. One had signs of radiation exposure, and another was missing her tongue. The original investigation concluded the deaths were caused by an unknown compelling force. The case was closed and classified, When reopened decades later, new explanations were offered, but none fully accounted for all the evidence. Avalanches could not explain certain injuries. Environmental factors did not explain radiation. The photographs taken by the hikers themselves ended abruptly, leaving unanswered questions about their final moments. File 2 remains officially documented, extensively studied, and fundamentally unexplained. File 1 is the reason the other files matter. Across different countries and decades, investigators encountered the same pattern. Individuals with no clear identity, evidence that pointed in multiple directions. Files closed without resolution. When modern forensic methods were applied to some of these cases, new details emerged. But the core questions remained unanswered. Who were these people? And why did their cases resist explanation? What makes File 1 disturbing is not a single mystery, but the realization that these cases are not isolated. They suggest a pattern of investigations that reached their limits. Files were closed not because answers were found, but because none could be proven. These cases were not ignored. They were investigated by professionals, documented in official records, and revisited repeatedly. And still, they remain unanswered. After reviewing all 5 files, the question is no longer what happened. It is how so much evidence can exist without producing a single explanation. Which file disturbed you the most? This was 5 files.